I had interviewed young Muslim kids at the University of Kansas and at other universities. And they come to me and they tell me all the doubts they have about this religion, all the reasons why they're skeptical about it, all the problems they have with this religion. I said, did you ever talk to your parents about it? Most of them said, they always have the same story. I asked this question once, my father just belted me. Or I asked this question once, and my parents said, you're not a believer. Or I asked this one question, and they told me, if you keep on thinking like that, you're going to get out of this house. So they learned not to talk about it, just to keep it to themselves. The children also complain, and the converts also complain, that there is an intellectual divide that they have to face, that they cannot seem to relate to the khutbahs, the speeches, the positions, the thought, the perspectives that come from behind the pulpits of the Islamic institutions in America. And I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm just trying to explain what they explain to me. Because in their education, and in their schooling, and now in their minds, they're taught rationalism, cold, objective reasoning. While in the community, the stress is on tradition, following traditional thought. Don't question the tradition. Don't raise difficult or controversial questions. In their education and in their society and in their entire life, they're taught individualism. It has its good and bad sides, but they're taught individualism. We teach them conformance to community norms. Don't rock the boat. One American lady convert back on the West Coast, she converted when she was 53 years old. Her husband had died several years earlier. She discovered this religion by reading the Quran, converted to the religion, and she would be constantly going to the leaders of her community, asking them questions, especially about the role of men and women in Islam, badgering them again and again because she didn't find the answers were satisfactory. And she was attacking them on rational grounds. At first, they politely replied, and then they tolerated a little more, and then they started to get a little bit angry with it, and finally they just told her, just leave us alone. Keep your questions to yourself. You are only a convert. We've been Muslims all our life. You are only a convert. Our students are taught critical, objective research. We teach them to revere the ancient authorities. And they see it as a conflict. They see it as two mutually exclusive approaches. They begin to have a difficult time seeing the relevance of Islam in their life. And the work of scholars in the past must always be reviewed, critically analyzed, updated. We always have to be checking and rechecking the work of the scholar because no scholar has the final word. This is true in physics, it's true in mathematics, it's true in engineering, it is true in the study of history, it is true in social science, it is true everywhere. If we rely on any century's thought, then we inevitably become stagnant intellectually. And we stop reaching the minds of future generations. We refuse to perform that same type of critical research that was done centuries ago. Even if that criticism only brings us back to the same point we were before, that is good. But it's kept alive. The great Indian thinker Iqbal wrote a book about the revivification of the Islamic sciences. He said this is extremely important. We must always investigate and reinvestigate and research the work of the past. Either perfect it or confirm it. But if you just put it up on a shelf and let the science die and just rely on it, the work of the people of the past, then we become disconnected with it. And we have the problem we have today with our children. What are we doing to answer them? And I don't just mean answer them. I mean answer them according to their level of thinking, according to their experience, according to their level of thought. The key question they keep asking is how much of this is religion and how much of this is culture? How do you tell what is essential to Islam from what is not essential? How do you know when some ideas were added to the religion, and how do you know which ones are essential and original to this faith? That's the question they're asking. We don't even allow them to ask it, and we don't prepare ourselves to answer it. We need to create an intellectual space in this community. We need to start thinking again. We need to start researching again. We need to start critically investigating again. And that's why we have to allow these kids to come into this community. We have to allow them to voice their concerns, to voice their questions, to make their position known. And then we have to patiently and painstakingly and intelligently and rationally respond to them. We need to revive all the great Islamic sciences, especially here in America, where we are on the front lines of the confrontation between Islamic thought and Western thought. What can we do right now? One, create in our communities the intellectual space to be able to start discussing things. Because right now, in our communities, we run them like some oligarchies. You know what an oligarchy is? Those where you have a small group of people ruling the entire country, controlling all the thought coming in and going out, and not allowing any dissenting opinions. We have to have freedom of speech and expression in our community, or at least create the space for it. And we also need to have our community become much more open, where free expression exists, and where we're tolerant of differences of opinion. But frankly, my brothers and sisters, I think that's going to be going to take too long, and it's going to come too late. Unless we suddenly radically change our whole approach